Yo, yo, yo. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the Realness. We're out here doing the thing, and you are about to embark on a Realness Hotline episode. That's right. People calling in from into the hotline from all over the world with all kinds of crazy, wild stories and really insightful questions. And I want to start off by just honoring you guys for reaching out, sharing yourself, sharing your thoughts. It's fun to check my email whenever I get these voicemails coming in, because they're so amazing for one, and absolutely random. And it's nice to hear what everybody's dealing with or thinking about or going through, or what they want to hear me ramble on about. So if that feels like if you feel like I should call into the show, then you can hit the hotline at 800-315-3218. Or an even simpler way to go about it is to go to my Instagram at Connor Wanders, Connor with an E, Wanders with an A, and then hit the call button in my profile. So that'll take you right to the hotline. You leave a sexy little voicemail there, and we'll get you on the show. These shows are super fun, y'all, and I want to share with you really quick that I just got back from Costa Rica. I was down in Costa Rica for about 10 days, and the reason I went down there was to do a little dance with Mother Ayahuasca. And holy fucking shit, was that an impactful experience. I've been to a lot of places. This past 6 months, I've been in Toronto, Seattle, Bellingham, Denver, back to Austin, my hometown. Like, I've been traveling a ton lately. I mean, I've seen some wild things. I saw a mannequin with a camel toe. That was in Toronto. I guess in Toronto they really go for it with the anatomy of their mannequins, but kind of threw me off a little bit. And what else have I seen? I've been out there. I've been out there doing the thing. I've seen beautiful sunsets and climbed some mountains. Pretty mystical, magical shit. But nothing compares to the experience I had down in Costa Rica at this place called Soltara, which is this little nook on the beach where they've put together an amazing facility with some really strong and man, I don't even know what word to use. Just, I'm going to use the word incredible like 45 times, but these healers from the Shipibo tradition in Peru to facilitate incredible experiences. And ayahuasca is such a powerful substance, and no one really knows how it works, but everyone knows that it works for in an odd way, exactly what we need. So if you're feeling called, here's the best part about all of this. If you're feeling called to ayahuasca, you're like, I keep hearing about this, and I get this feeling inside me like this is something that I want to do. We are actually going back down in May of 2019. We are hosting a Realness Retreat at Soltara in Costa Rica, and I want you to get there. I want you to come. I want you to be a part of this. We're looking at 5 nights, 6 days, 3 ceremonies with myself, Kirsten Asher, and my good friend Mike Salimi. We'll be doing everything from creative expression and movement to some fitness pieces. Not too crazy, because ayahuasca is a journey of its own, but getting into some really strong movement practices, getting into some meditation practices and creative expression practices, just being all in this one container together, working on ourselves and really just honoring our journey in life. In this podcast, I get a little bit wild and a little bit out there, but the really important thing that I try to get across, and that I feel is my purpose, is to help people live more authentically, help people to break out of patterns that may have been placed upon them throughout life that they may or may not still agree with, and to throw that shit aside, break out of those boundaries, and live a little bit more fully by just being who you are. And I can say that ayahuasca has played a huge role in my life, and feeling like I've taken steps towards that more genuine life. And if you think about the way you express yourself into the world, and that really the world is just a reflection of you back at yourself, then you think about expression in a whole different way. And I think being able to dig into ourselves deeply and explore ourselves gives us so much freedom to express ourselves fully. And that is why we're going down to Soltara. So if this is interesting to you, if you're like, ooh, you're feeling it, then you can go to gettherealness.com, hit the Realness Retreat tab, and just drop your name and your email in there. We'll get in touch with you and let you know all the sexy details as to what's going on. It's going to be an amazing experience. I mean, when we were down there, the one thing that just kept coming up is, holy shit, we get to actually share this with people. And I'm immensely grateful for that experience. So gettherealness.com is where you can find all of that stuff. There will also be links in the description of the show. If you think something like that, or something like lifestyle design as well, is something that I put together that is with this very same intention. There's not any ayahuasca involved in lifestyle design. Me and you, one-on-one, 8 weeks, working through practices, intentions, and accountability to help you break out of those same patterns. Like, this is the pattern in my life, is helping people break out of patterns. That's what I'd love to do, and I'd love to do that with you as well. So all of that stuff is at gettherealness.com. Now, let's jump into this hotline episode. We got some juicy calls today. And first, I want to play you in with one of my favorite jams from a buddy of mine from back in Graham, Texas. Good old Graham, Texas, little 8,000 person town that raised me in a way. And the guy you're about to hear, his name is Ross Shiflett. He and I go way back. We're actually in the same little 3-person weightlifting group in high school football back in the day. I've listened to this guy play on more tailgates and more pasture parties, definitely varsity blues style parties back when I was growing up. It's funny to think about now, and maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia and why I like to play his stuff on my show here. But if you dig his stuff, you can look in the description. You'll see rossshiflettmusic.com. Go check him out. And this little tune is called "Notice Me." Guys, I'm feeling it. Getting ready for this podcast. Just for you, notice me. Ross Shiflett, ladies and gentlemen. With that sweet, sweet voice. You a song, if it brought me fame, I would give it all up for you to know my name, and for you to notice me. Oh man, gotta cut it off right there, but holy shit, that song gives me them feels. And don't we just all want to be noticed? You know, I think that's something, and maybe that's why Ross and I resonate, is because we're both out here just trying to put our work out into the world and get noticed, be seen, feel seen. And goddamn, doesn't it feel so good when you're around somebody who can actually see you, actually see who you're trying to be. And one thing that really came up for me as of late, and I started thinking about, in my recent ayahuasca adventures, thinking more about partnership and what I want in a romantic relationship. And man, it's been wild to look back on some of my older relationships and think, I think that those people, the people that I really had this deep love with, actually really loved me. They loved me at the time, and that feels so good. It feels so good to feel noticed, understood, and seen. And I think as I go forward, and something that came up for me in my recent trip to Costa Rica was me understanding and embracing this mantra of, are you being the man that you need to be? And are you being the man that you need to be in your life? With what you have and what you've been given. That's super, super enlightening for me, and really and I've just kind of taken that into my heart, and it's been really, really impactful. And I kind of, in my journaling practice this morning was actually writing about this. And I think that one of the most amazing things that I could ask for in a partner going forward is can this person love me now and also love the man that I need to be in my life and that I need to be, and let me express that into the world in a way that makes sense. And it's going to be confusing and it's going to be kind of wild and crazy. But, there was something about that feeling and that understanding that felt so right to me. And man, Ross's song just has me feeling that and thinking about that. So we're going to jump into these calls now. We got some fun stuff, and we're going to be, as usual, talking a little bit about relationships, but we're going to start it off right now.
Okay, so voice memo question number 1 would be to comment on the difference between being a dick versus just not being interested, and how, or at least your thoughts on when you're not interested, if it's better to just be super direct so that way you don't leave some hope for the other person, or if you think it's better to let them down in a way that leaves them still hoping. Which I guess, by the way, I've asked this question, it makes my stance on it pretty obvious. And then question number 2 would be just to comment on, the speed of a relationship, the positives and negatives of, starting off too fast versus taking things slow, and, what those positives and negatives are. Okay.
Hell yeah, love that. So got a 2-parter here from Jennifer. She didn't put her name in here, but Jennifer, thanks for calling in. So let's tackle this first one first. So let's talk about the difference between being a dick and letting somebody down easy, which is kind of, oh man, such an interesting thing to talk about. So you're in a relationship. We're just going to paint the picture here. You're in a relationship, and all of a sudden, you're like, I am no longer interested in being in this relationship. Okay. So how do you go about doing this? And a lot of times this is, let's talk about the most common one, because every, long-term relationship and things that are a little bit more, have a little bit more depth to them are way more delicate, and we'll leave that for another time. If you have if you have a intense breakup that you need to go through, let's talk about that. You can call in, hit the hotline, and we'll dive into that. But what I want to talk about now, which is the most common, I feel, is through the dating process. And we're all out here dating new people and trying new things and exploring ourselves. And part of that is going to be dating people that you are no longer interested in and having to have that conversation. So being direct, or AKA being a dick, versus letting someone down easy and leaving them still hoping. So let's just look at the language around how Vanessa said that. It's either being a dick, which has a negative connotation to it, or letting them down easy and leaving them still hoping. So just by the way you're painting the picture there, you're kind of losing on both sides of that. It's you're either a bad person or you're dealing with somebody else's expectations and bullshit, which is also not good. It's also bad. So let's reframe this. If you're having the consistent issue of people misunderstanding your intentions in your conversations through trying to express that you are no longer interested in pursuing a romantic relationship with them, if that has happened several times in your life, you are the common denominator. You, not them. It's not their fault. Guys aren't crazy. Girls aren't crazy. Some are, and that's okay. But if that's happened enough times in your life to where you're having to really fucking a huge issue with it, you're the common denominator. So you can think about your communication style, the way that you're communicating with them and how you're expressing it to them. Are you actually being honest? And this is the biggest thing I see when you're going through a breakup or breaking it off with someone. It may not even be to the level of what you call a breakup, but are you being honest? Are you trying to save their feelings to make yourself feel better about the whole thing? Because that's a slippery fucking slope. And when you look at that and say, yeah, maybe, it's hey, you're a really great person. I really love you as a friend. All this stuff, which may feel true, you could probably just leave that shit out and say, hey, I feel like our values don't really align and this isn't going to work as a romantic relationship. There's nothing you can do to make it work. I want you to be you. And I don't feel that you're being you with me. And I don't feel that I'm being me with you. And that's not what I want in a partnership. And then also being extremely fucking clear about what kind of values you bring to a relationship and what kind of values that you want to see in your partner. So that way you know, and you have an indicator and you have a basis upon which to stand on, because otherwise you're trying to explain something that just doesn't seem to feel right, which is extremely confusing for you. And if it's confusing for you, then it's super fucking confusing for the other person. So you end up in this really kind of flexible, confusing, fucked up space versus just being like, this is the values that I hold in myself. This is what I enjoy about myself that I bring to a relationship. And maybe that's not being recognized. And if that's not being recognized, you can try to communicate that. And if that doesn't work out, it's probably not the relationship for you. And if it does, that's great. And then sometimes you see something in somebody else that they really get enjoyment out of something that you don't value in a partner. That's awesome. They deserve to be with someone who values the things about them that they value about themselves. That's really beautiful. But a lot of times this comes down to communication and values more than leaving people hoping. And when you can do that, if you can really get clear on what you value about yourself and you can explain that to someone, you're going to hurt their fucking feelings. And you might kind of feel like an asshole because unless you're a sociopath, then you're going to feel their feelings a little bit, especially if you have some kind of intimate communication. And it's going to kind of suck for you. And that's okay. You got to accept that. That's part of this whole process, is that sometimes life's going to suck. Just for a moment. You know, one of the best things, like when you're choosing to leave a relationship, then you're choosing the problem of kind of feeling like shit. And one of the most beautiful things about life, in my opinion, is that we get to choose our own problems. And choosing the problem of being free and feeling like shit for a minute is okay. That's an easy decision to make. But you have to get super clear on what it is that you value, what it is that isn't aligned, and be able to explain that to someone. And and if you have to be relatively assertive about it, that's okay. And you don't need to call yourself a dick or just say, I'm just standing up for myself here. You don't need to call yourself names about it. And also, when you look at this and say, shit, where was I going with that? A little bit of a rant here, but it really is a lot of it is about values. And one thing, here's where I was going. One thing that's really important to understand is that people don't like to be wrong. If you're dating someone who has constructed a narrative of what his or her life is going to be with you in it, and then you go and tell them that they are wrong, well, shit. You know, they don't want to feel that either. And a lot of times it's not about you being them thinking that you're the person or that you're wrong about breaking up because they love you or whatever it is. It's that deep down they don't want to feel wrong and they don't want to feel alone and they don't want to feel like they're broken. So it's the most important thing you can do is communicate that this person's not broken. You're not broken, dude. This just isn't right. There's tons of people out there. You know, it's a kind of a cliche, but there's, you know, a lot of fish in the sea or whatever the fuck. And when you can communicate to someone, one, your values, what you value about yourself, what you value in partnership, and how you guys are misaligned in a breakup. And two, reiterate this person's not broken. You don't have to say that you love them, that you're not in love with them, or just leave that shit aside because that is pandering, you know, but you can let them know like, hey, this just isn't what I want. And that's okay too. And understand that to the point of sometimes people are fucking clingy and weird, but if you give it a week, everything's generally going to be okay, but you don't have to be a dick. And you don't have to leave them stringing them along. And if you miss them and then tell them that you miss them and then are confused why they keep puppy dogging you, well, that's on you at that point. That's not on them. So keep that shit in mind. I mean, it really comes down, again, I'm going to say it 300 fucking times. Communicate your values. And to communicate your values, you need to understand what you value about yourself and what you value about partnership. And I wouldn't go so deep into creating personality traits and having a fucking checklist. That's also an issue. But at the same time, we can look at this and say, if I can communicate my values well to this person and the misalignment within them, if I can communicate the values that I have for myself in partnership with someone that I do want to be with, that's also a nice win. And you turn these breakups into really communication school for yourself to understand how to communicate with partners. Well, that's fucking solid gold, right? You end up in a really kick-ass place then. And then understanding to really reiterate that person's not broken. They're not the person for you, but they're not broken. And they're not alone. And they're not wrong necessarily. They may be wrong about this relationship, but they're not wrong in the macro sense. Whew. All right. So I love that. Thanks for dropping that in, Vanessa, because I feel like that's super important. And And now let's jump into something here that I think is also really, really important, that she just dropped 2 bombs on us. Shouts to Vanessa for just coming in with the heat off the jump. Speed of progress in dating. So notoriously, in our world now, dating is so fast with apps like Bumble, which I prefer to Tinder, which is trash. And I'm gonna end up getting a sponsorship by Bumble. Bumble, cut that fucking check. I need to get paid over here because I'm giving you guys all kinds of love. If you guys are out there on the social medias, let Bumble know that they need to start sponsoring the Realness, because that would be great for everyone. And everybody getting paid and getting laid. You know what I'm saying? All right. Anyways, back to the show. The speed of dating. Now we have this notorious environment where we date super fast, and you can just keep moving through people. And I think one thing that brings out in us is getting almost more dogmatic about the things that we want, because we encounter things that we don't want so often. And you end up feeling like you can have this checklist like I was talking about earlier, because there are so many fucking people that you think you can create a checklist and then manifest somebody into that perfect checklist because some chick wrote a blog about how perfect her relationship is, that's 24 and has been dating her guy for 6 months. And she says that she called in her soulmate, right? Because that's what it should be like. I should get everything that I want because I'm fucking special. Well, if you think that you should get everything that you want and that you're fucking special, that means that you are a narcissist and you're probably a pain in the ass to date. So check your shit. We don't need that, right? It's not the way the fucking world works, okay? Again, this comes down to understanding your values about yourself and what you want in partnership. One thing that I'm in a relatively spiritual community out here in Encinitas, and I hear these people talking about all the fucking checklists that they want to be covered by their partner. And you know what I would really like personally, and I'm just going to make this about me now because maybe I'm a narcissist too, is that I would really like to be with somebody who feels really fucking good when they're around me. And maybe can't explain it, but they're like, you know what? I don't know about the rest of the shit, and I don't have this this wild fucking checklist. I would like to be with someone who feels really good when they're around me being myself. Maybe that is a checklist. Maybe that's checkbox number 1 on my checklist. And I think about that a ton when it comes to speed in relationships and how fast things move. If you understand your values about partnership, you understand your values in dating, well, then you can really, once you have an understanding of those, construct the progress that you want to have and how you feel respected in the progress of a relationship. And if you can feel respected and you feel like your values are respected, that ends up being the speedometer of your relationship. And sometimes you want to have a casual relationship where maybe it is very physical and you feel like a close bond with this person and you both know that you aren't each other's person necessarily, but you enjoy each other's company and it's a nice connection for you and you value that connection. There's no shame in that. That's all good. That's all good, baby. Get in there, have a great time. But when you have this obscure understanding of what you value about yourself in a relationship, then you can just get tossed and turned and pushed and pulled. And think about that as pulling you out of alignment with yourself. And when you get pulled out of alignment with yourself, everything seems like a fucking shit show. And that's not what you want. That's not what you want in a relationship. That's not what you want in partnership. No, that's not money right there. That's not what we're looking for. So this is so variable to each person. And some people may meet randomly at a fucking Whole Foods or something like that and then have sex that day and then live happily ever after. Like, who knows? They can move in together in 3 months and say, I love you after the first week. That's fucking incredible. And dude, is that not a fucking badass story? Tell later on, like, yeah, we bumped into each other over the kombucha aisle and next thing you know, we're like tangled up and we haven't ever left each other's side. And that was 20 years ago. That's fucking cool. That's like a romantic comedy. Bring it, And some people need to go about it a different way because that's just the way their personality works. And they want to have this, like, maybe they're friends into like developing feelings. And dude, that's super huge too. A lot of this has to do with our conditioning as to how we've seen romantic relationships develop in our past. If you had a kind of a rough upbringing with your parents, maybe your parents fought a lot or were in a divorce, then maybe what you're looking for in a partnership is someone that really is assuring to you that you, from the very beginning, you're almost like super assertive about someone or needing someone to constantly validate their feelings for you because you feel that what you understand of romantic relationships is very insecure. And so that may manifest in several different ways. And maybe your parents were super loving and had a very healthy relationship. So for you, it's a little bit easier to go slow because you think, everything's going to be okay. So again, looking at this and thinking, all right, here's my values in a partnership. And then what developed my understanding for how a relationship is supposed to progress, right? What developed that? What are the patterns in my life that developed my understanding of how this whole fucking thing is supposed to go down anyways? Because that is something we don't think about because we've essentially agreed to think about relationships in a certain way based upon the experience that we've had in life. So if you look at that and say, fuck, okay, well, maybe I don't really necessarily agree with that. It was just what I knew at the time. Well, that's cool. Okay, good. Awesome. Dig into yourself. Feel it out. Is that really what you want to believe and feel now? So let that be your barometer. Let your values and your experience dictate the speed of relationships. And get rid of your goddamn checklist and get into your fucking feelings. Oh, man. Guys, I think I'm on one today. I think ayahuasca did some things to me because I'm fucking on fire. All right. I hope you are liking this so far because I feel like I'm talking a million miles an hour. I hope you don't have this podcast on 1.5 speed or else, well, you might miss some things. All right, let's jump into this next one from our good boy, Big Will.
Hey, Connor. What's up? Big Will here. Just driving into work, triggered this thought here for you. What's a life experience or an event that you haven't had yet that you're like, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to, experience this or be a part of it. For example, I've always wanted to go to Tomorrowland over in Belgium. Seems like a sick time there. So, yeah, just curious as to what some of those events or that thing or things might be. All right, buddy, I love you, you beauty. Keep it easy.
Our boy, Big Will, always coming through with some fire questions. Shouts to Big Will. Go follow him on Twitter. I actually don't know his handle, but just look through my Twitter feed and you'll find him. He's always putting out that fire content. And I feel like he's tapped into the best podcast in the game, mine being one of them, because if you're listening to this, this podcast is absolute fire. And that's why after this podcast, you're going to go leave a 5-star review on iTunes because you love me and you love this show and you love yourself. And by putting good energy into the internet, that is the most reliable way to be fulfilled in your life. Anyways, back to Will's question. So one life experience on my kind of bucket list that I haven't experienced yet that I would like to experience. Man, that is an awesome question. And I thought about this, actually cheated a little bit, and I listened to these questions beforehand, if you guys didn't know that. And, the first thing that came to mind, there's a few things that I want to do, but I feel like they're attainable and they're doable. Like they're probably doable in 2019, right? Like I want to bow hunt for elk and make that happen. And I've been able to, be connected with people that make that a possibility, which is something I'm super grateful for. And there's a couple other things I want to do as well that are along those same lines. But the one thing that I haven't experienced that I think would be absolutely fucking incredible is having a kid. And, when I think about it, and I'll get super, super transparent for a minute. When I was 26 years old, I found out that maybe till I was 27, something like that, 26, 27, 28, in that like late 20s range, I found out that I was born without vas deferens, what vas deferens are essentially the tubes that carry semen, your little swimmers, to the tube that get blasted out, right? So I knew I'd been blowing small loads, but everything seemed normal, like nothing was problem, but I knew something was up. So finally, when I had, the stability and some insurance, I went and got some things checked. I rubbed one out into a cup. Little insider information, the porn that they have in those facilities is not great. So I used my imagination, a little bit of a side there. So shouts to my imagination for being super strong and powerful. Anyways, and I came up just like triple zeros, 0.00 on the sperm count. I was like, oh shit, something's up here. So Next step is then going to get a ultrasound shoved up my asshole, and then that allows me to see the anatomy inside of myself. And the funny thing is, my urologist actually has the same issue, which is super rare. So found out, okay, no vas deferens, and since he had the same experience, he was able to talk to me about it and talk about the options, and that I could do in vitro, and things would be cool, and I could do it. It's like an 80% chance that I would be able to have my own kid. And we did some more testing to make sure that there wasn't some kind of genetic disorder or anything like that, and everything came back clear, which is really great. But man, that was really challenging. I remember my girlfriend at the time was so sweet to me during that. I'd always wanted to be a dad, and I never had thought about, maybe I had a feeling something was up, but I'd never really thought about being able to have a kid. So, and I kind of always wanted to adopt as well. So that was something that was in my mind. And now I was for sure going to adopt, just because that seemed like even more of a calling to that path. So, when I hear this question, that's the one thing I think about is having a kid. And speaking of adoption, I think it would be very different, but I don't think that there's one or another besides bringing your own kid home from the hospital, right? And like having a child, or adopting a kid and getting to bring that kid home. I think that there's a beauty in both of those that's just so amazing, and being able to provide a life. There's something about being able to provide a life for someone who deserves a good life just as much as anybody else, and to be able to do that, and be able to bring another life into your life, and be able to provide a life for them that is something that they may have not had once upon a time, then I think that's beautiful. And, as I'm sitting here talking, kind of feeling into this, like I talk about, if I'm in my body now and feeling this, like I talk about bringing a kid home from the hospital and like having a kid and doing the whole pregnancy thing, like that does feel really nice. But if I had to pick one, I think the most incredible thing would be to adopt a child, and bring their life into yours, and to be a parent to that child. That's something that I think would be absolutely fucking incredible, and something I think is that I'll do. But that all seems so much bigger than going to Tomorrowland would be sweet. Killing an elk would be sweet with a bow. Like those are big goals I've had for a long time. But when I really get into my feelings on this, like adopting a child seems like the answer for me. So that's probably not what you were expecting, Big Will, from the guy who talks about jungle drugs and threesomes, but that's the answer you're getting, because that is the motherfucking truth. So let's move it on. Last one for the day. Man, I fucking love these hotline calls, guys.
What's up, Connor? This is Chris Sexton from Madison, Alabama. Just calling in to say thank you for serving the universe with your awesome show and other content that you're producing, and all the relationships you're building, man. My question to you is, how do you view comparison, and is there a way that you use it to leverage your productivity? This is something that I've experienced, and I've had conversations with others who also experienced this, and I know it's my belief that you can almost use that comparison as a way to build compassion for yourself and others, but I'd love to know your thoughts on this topic. Once again, thank you, Connor, for everything that you're doing.
Man, Chris, thank you so much for those kind words, brother. That really means a lot to me. And I've actually known Chris through the social media sphere for quite a while. This guy's putting out consistent kick-ass fitness, strength and conditioning, and mindfulness advice out on the Instagram. So go follow him. His name is Chris Sexton. He's an awesome, awesome dude. And how about that fucking question, guys? That's awesome, because speaking of social media, we get to compare ourselves, like welcome to 2018 or 2019. You get to compare yourself with anybody around the world if you want to, and it can always make you feel like less than if you really choose for that to be your reality. It's a fucking mess sometimes. But what he's talking about, and I think, in the strength and conditioning sphere, this kind of this sports world that a lot of us came from, that comparison can be a really powerful tool. And you think about, being better than the other guy, because that's how you get your starting spot, or that's how you win a game, or that's how you win anything. And you start looking at life through the lens of winning and losing. And that can get a lot done. That can be actually, when he talks about productivity, that can be a very productive way when you think about productivity in the sense of getting shit done. And also, it can leave you feeling like you never win because there's always somebody else to compare yourself to. And maybe that person has different skills than you do, or talents. And talent is rare. Like being able to express your talents is very rare. And we do the best we can with our environment in the world to bring out the talents that serve us and are in alignment with who we are. So I think when you look at comparison, you have to create a different relationship with comparison than what you've likely had in your entire life. And I think this is where we talk about things like abundance and scarcity. Okay, so if you're comparing yourself from a scarcity mindset, that means that someone else doing well means that you don't get as much good. It's the most articulate thing I've ever said. But look at this from a scarcity mindset. It's a zero-sum game. For example, if Chris and I are both talking about meditation and mindfulness, and Chris got more likes than me on his Instagram, and I didn't get as many likes as him, then he got likes that I didn't get. And the only way that for me to succeed is for him to do worse, or it becomes this kind of back and forth, which is a dangerous place to be, in an unwinnable game. Because then on the other side of your personality or your Instagram profile is somebody else who's doing better at something else. Then you're chasing that person, and you're really just chasing your own tail all around in circles. And that's not fucking good. Now, if you can look at comparison from an abundance mindset, right? So see, we'll use Chris again and I myself as example because we talk about some of the same things. If Chris and I look at each other and I say, oh, Chris is really being super consistent with what he's putting out in the world, and I see the impact it's making, and I'm comparing that to my life and being like, hey man, Connor, you could be more consistent with what you're doing. You could be more consistent. Maybe you can change your writing style a little bit to communicate a little bit better. Maybe you could be more efficient in the way that you're sharing your message, and that's huge. That is super impactful. And when you look at things like that and say, okay, I am comparing myself to people all the time, but I'm comparing myself in a way that is from a place of abundance and learning and questioning myself and being more inquisitive about myself than I am critical of myself. Because look at that and be like, you know what? Actually, I can be more consistent, and I can be more clear with my message, and I can. Like I can be the man that I need to be in my own language, and my own mantra currently is, can I be the man I need to be? And look at that. And comparison is huge because also when you compare yourself or you look around at the world, sometimes it shows you what's possible. Sometimes you look around at people that have done more, been around longer, and you can compare yourself because you're like, oh shit, that's possible. I remember my first time, I had this actually journal about this, and I looked at something about Lewis Howes, who, if you don't know who Lewis Howes is, he's a podcaster and kind of this like personal development guru in a way, and he's a really sweet guy, and I've been blessed to get to meet him and spend some time with him, and I like to say, like, his message is good, and I think it's important, and people really seem to love it, and that's awesome. And one thing I looked at whenever I was like, actually, Lewis Howes is extremely inspiring to me. And it wasn't because of his message, and it wasn't because I thought he was exceptional at what he was putting out into the world. I just didn't think it didn't resonate with me in that way. But I knew the guy, and I'd been around him, and I was like, it's inspiring to me because if he can do it, I can do it. If he can do this, I can do this. Like, I'm enough. I'm enough to be able to create a life for myself of really badass experiences and loving to share. And that was really inspiring to me. And the more people that I got around, he was actually the first person that I felt that way about. But the more I've sat at tables with people and been around, and really, I guess I am comparing myself to people in certain ways. I say, oh man, like my friend Mike Bledsoe, right? The way he is about things, like, he's pretty fucking wild and out there. And it's like, man, I see the value in that. I compare myself to you in that way. And that's really, really beautiful. Or JP Sears, who I've been super grateful to get to know. I look at JP and that guy has built an amazing life for himself. And he's still using the most basic editing video software out there because it's about his content. And I was like, man, I see the potential to let what you're putting out into the world lead the way, and just put the other stuff together as it goes along, because what you're putting out is from the heart, and it's very purposeful, and it's very well done, and it's consistent. Like, I started to see that. So I was consistently comparing myself to each other, but not because I'm like, oh, I need to get more followers than JP because it's a competition, right? Or I need to take, people need to pay attention to me, not him. That would be really toxic, and that's not fueling connections. And, like that old saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think if you can look at things and compare from a place of abundance, and people really appreciate that and will want to be around you. And when people want to be around you, it's way easier to grow. So, Chris, thank you so much for calling in with that question. I fucking love it. I love it. Oh, man, this has been a fun show, guys. I really enjoy this, and I really appreciate that you guys are hanging out with me as well. Man, this is awesome. So if you want to jump on the hotline, you can go to my Instagram profile. Like I said, hit the call button. It'll take you straight to the voicemail box. Just leave a voicemail with your name, where you're from, and whatever you want to talk about. You have a pretty good idea of what we jump into on this show. And maybe the littlest question can inspire a long-winded, fiery rant. The number is 800-315-3218 if you want to go that route. All the links to everything you need to know are in the description. And as Christmas is coming up, guys, this is a great time to support the people that work with the podcast and that support me. If you want to look in the description, we have some awesome brands from Aura Ring, which is a world-class tracker for any of those biohackers out in your life. We got stuff from Hate Brand Goods, which is my favorite fitness apparel company. Super great stuff there. You can grab Procabulary and step up your language. There's discounts for all of this stuff. Hemp Lucid, which is some full spectrum CBD that I absolutely love. I don't work with any brands that I don't really appreciate. And a lot of this stuff is just because I love their stuff. At the end of the day, like I'm usually friends with somebody who works there, and then I love their gear, I love what they're about, and we set up an affiliate. And honestly, I don't even really get paid that much to do it. But I love supporting people who I feel like are putting great stuff out into the world. And if you feel like you want to check that stuff out, you can just hit the links in the description. All the info is there. All the links to everything are in the description, guys. If you want to jump on some lifestyle design, 8 weeks of one-on-one work with me, oh man, that would be fun. I'm super grateful to do that. That's one of my favorite parts of the day, when I get to hang out with my lifestyle design people. We got a few new things coming up. We'll have a lifestyle design online course. We've got a journal company that's launching. So much great stuff, guys. And we're playing you out with my girl, Whip Blue. She's been a part of the podcast since early on, giving me access to her music. So we're actually gonna play a song called Crystallized right now. It's probably subtly playing in. I'm fading in Crystallized right now, just for you. Guys, this has been fun. Respect you guys. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all soon. Much love. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
Your truth isn't my truth, so what is true? How can we trust answers that we can't prove? You wanted me to love you, but I was too fucked up to trust you, and so I messed it up just like I always do. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Right now they're not doing shit for me, except making me feel weak. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Your truth isn't my truth, so what is true? How can we trust answers that we can't prove? You wanted me to love you, but I was too fucked up to trust you, and so I messed it up just like I always do. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me